welcome to the Acid Trash Jamboree, and to an episode dedicated to this Blu-ray box set, Camille Keaton in Italy, put out by Vinegar Syndrome a few years back. Now, even if you're unfamiliar with Keaton as an actress, you'll no doubt have at least heard of one of her films. Yeah, back in 1978, she starred in the notorious shocker I Spit on Your Grave, which has caused all manner of upset since its release, leading to multiple countries either censoring it or just banning it altogether. Before this, though, despite being born in America, Keaton actually got her break appearing in a string of Italian movies, starting with the solid giallo murder mystery, What Have You Done to Solange?, which isn't included in this set, though I do own it as a standalone release by Arrow Video. Yeah, this isn't a comprehensive overview of her time in Italy by any means. The box set featuring just 3 of the 6 movies she made there, kicking off with 1974's Madeleine, Anatomy of a Nightmare, directed by Roberto Mauri, whose work I'm otherwise unfamiliar with. And yeah, overall, this is a pretty vague and confusing movie, focusing on Keaton as the titular Madeleine, a woman haunted by disturbing nightmares which invariably involve fire, death, figures in long flowing gowns and brightly coloured wigs, and creepy baby dolls, her trauma rooted in a miscarriage she suffered a few years prior. Now, Madeleine is married to an older doctor named Franz, and yeah, it's fair to say they have a somewhat open relationship. Madeleine trying to distance herself from her issues by hopping from bed to bed with a series of much younger men, including random hitchhikers, and even Louis, Franz's son from a previous marriage. Meanwhile, we learn that Franz is interested in parapsychology and the occult, and is possibly using this knowledge and power for nefarious means, everything coming to a dramatic head during a swanky party at the couple's villa. This being an Italian movie from the 70s, all is not as it seems, of course. But whilst we await the penny to hopefully drop with the inevitable big twist, is there enough going on to entertain, I hear you scream? Well, yes and no. On the plus side, there's plenty of sumptuously photographed scenery to take in as Madeleine drives around, searching for the next young stud to befriend. Yeah, these Italian epics rarely disappoint as far as visuals go, and I should quickly mention that there's also plenty of Miss Keaton on display too, if you know what I mean. The keyboard-heavy score is also quite nice, mixing up melancholic and romantic themes with proggy synth squelchiness, bad trip atonality, corny psychedelic freak-out music, and a smattering of Italian pop-rock tunes. As for the rest, as I said, the film spends much of its runtime meandering about in a vague netherworld, unsure of whether it wants to be a psychological creepfest or a steamy, erotic melodrama, in the end not doing either especially well. Regarding the aforementioned twist, for me at least, this doesn't entirely satisfy as far as pulling everything together is concerned, though others may disagree. Overall, as someone who loves movies with a dreamlike or nightmarish feeling, I really wanted to like this more, especially with the intense and weird opening sequence, getting things off to a promising start, though ultimately it's not one of the better examples of dream logic cinema. As I always say though, if you're a hopeless case for movies of this nature, or just for Italian genre cinema in general, then it's probably worth a cursory glance. Otherwise, there's plenty of other stuff to be checking out instead. Next up is the gothic chiller Tragic Ceremony, in which Keaton stars as Jane, a rather quiet and introverted sort, who finds herself in a world of trouble whilst on a road trip with a trio of male friends. Yeah, after their car runs out of gas in the middle of nowhere, the foursome then get caught in a storm, eventually taking shelter in a creepy old castle, which, unbeknownst to them, belongs to a pair of devout Satanists who are just about to conduct a black mass. After tempting her away from the others, the sinister couple intend on sacrificing Jane to the Horned One during the ceremony. Chaos ensues, and the friends escape, though unfortunately for them, this is just the start of their troubles, as they end up being pursued relentlessly by murderous, supernatural forces. Okay, so this is the one film from the box set that I'd seen prior to buying it. And yeah, whilst I do like it, with my synopsis here, I've no doubt made it sound slightly more happening and exciting than it actually is. Yeah, for the most part, Tragic Ceremony is more concerned with establishing a feeling of dread, almost tipping into uncanny, liminal territory after a time, thanks to its weird, flat atmosphere and skeleton crew cast. Whenever it does kick off, it's worth the wait, as I say, with one particularly crazy scene piling on the gore, though for the most part, this is a slow burner. Not the most effective of its kind, but not the out-and-out snoozer that some people have labelled it as. So yeah, I'd recommend this, but your mileage may vary. As for the soundtrack, following on from the moody theme song, sung by crooner Ernesto Brancucci, we get a bunch of lush, sweeping, orchestral cues, plus a bit of gothic organ music during the satanic mass. Okay, so we finish with Sex of the Witch from 1973, which revolves around that familiar storyline of a wealthy patriarch dying, his dysfunctional family gathering in his sprawling castle for the reading of the will, and ultimately members of said family being bumped off by a mysterious killer for reasons that may or may not become clear as things progress. Yeah, I've lost count of how many films I've seen now with this basic premise, so if you're anything like me, then you may find yourself rolling your eyes at the prospect of sitting through yet another one. In spite of the thoroughly unoriginal plot, though, director Angelo Pannaccio does at least try to mix things up a bit, factoring in some intriguing mutterings about deep, dark family secrets, not to mention a steamy subplot involving two of the castle's servants, who like to get fresh with each other whenever and wherever they can, and an out-of-nowhere, sepia-tinted psychedelic scene in a nightclub, where one of the characters watches a rock band play as the revellers engage in a wild orgy. Overall, though, as with the aforementioned Madeleine, for me, the various threads of the movie never quite come together, things getting harder to keep up with the longer it runs, not helped by the overabundance of extended erotic scenes, which don't seem to serve much purpose and ultimately just made my mind wander, to the point that I could barely remember what had been going on 10 minutes before. Keaton herself has a much smaller role in this one compared to the other two, though if you're a completist, then there's just about enough of her here to make it worth a viewing. If I really racked my brains, I could no doubt think of more to say about this, but I don't really see the point, as it's easily the weakest movie of the three. As a devotee of weirdo 70s cinema, I can't bring myself to write it off entirely, though truth be told, if it wasn't included in this box, I'd probably be tempted to chuck it on the sales pile. By the way, listen out for the weird stock nature sound effects in this film, especially the ultra-annoying bird call that pops up seemingly every other minute, which I'm pretty sure was also used in Jess Franco's excellent Female Vampire. Also, if the cover art looks familiar at all, it's because it was previously used on the poster for this film the year before. So, a hit and miss collection overall. Yeah, it's not difficult to see why Vinegar Syndrome decided to stick these together as a set rather than try to put them out individually, as a couple of the titles may have proven to be an extremely hard sell otherwise. As I said at the beginning, this is only half the picture as far as Keaton's Italian adventure is concerned. The box might have felt a bit more satisfactory and well-rounded if it had featured the other 3 movies, but as it is, it's a bit of a lopsided affair. So if you're tight for time, then I'd say at least give Tragic Ceremony a go if you're a 70s horror fan and you're after something more on the low-key and creepy side of things. Otherwise, if we're talking about the box as a whole, then I'd say it's probably only worth picking up physically if you're a Camille Keaton nut or if you find it for a low price. Anyway, that's about it for today. Thanks a lot for watching. Please check out the channel's archives for a ton more content about weird and wonderful movies and music. And I'll catch you again soon on the Acid Trash Jamboree.